My cruel husband's face was full of anger as he walked toward me. Before I could say anything, his fist hit my neck hard, making me gasp for air. I held my daughter tightly, trying to stay steady, but the pain was too much. Then he grabbed my hair and pulled it so hard that tears came to my eyes. My daughter started crying loudly in my arms, and I tried to protect her. But what happened next was something I could never have imagined. My name is Leela, and I am 29 years old. This is the story of how my life, once filled with dreams of love and happiness, was shattered by betrayal, only to be rebuilt through resilience and determination. It is a story of heartbreak, a devastating betrayal, and ultimately, justice. I never imagined that the man I trusted the most would become my greatest source of pain. What began as a fairy tale romance quickly spiraled into a nightmare. This is my journey, from falling in love to finding the strength to stand up for myself and my daughter, Ava. I first met Ryan when I was 18 years old. We both lived in Denver, a city bustling with energy and opportunity. Ryan was charming, with an easy confidence that made him stand out. I was immediately drawn to his determination and ambition. He had big dreams of starting his own tech company, and I admired his focus. Our first meeting was at a community event. I was volunteering in a booth for a local charity, and Ryan came over to donate. "So, you're not just beautiful but also generous," he said with a grin that made me blush. We ended up talking for hours that day, and by the end of the evening, I knew there was something special about him. Over the next few months, we became inseparable. We would spend hours talking about our future, Ryan's plans for his company, and my goals of becoming a marketing consultant. I felt like we were a team, ready to take on the world together. After 4 years of dating, Ryan proposed to me on a chilly winter evening in a small park where we had spent many of our early dates. He knelt in the snow, holding a simple but beautiful ring, and asked, "Leela, will you build a life with me?" I said yes without hesitation. It felt like the perfect moment, the culmination of years of shared dreams and love. At 23, we got married in an intimate ceremony surrounded by family and friends. I was filled with hope and excitement, ready to build a future together. Our early days as newlyweds were everything I had hoped for. Ryan worked tirelessly to get his tech startup off the ground, and I had just landed my first job as a marketing consultant. We would come home in the evenings, exhausted but happy, sharing stories about our day and dreaming about the family we planned to have. Life felt perfect, or so I thought. 2 years into our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. The moment I saw the positive test, I was overwhelmed with joy. I couldn't wait to tell Ryan. That evening, I cooked his favorite dinner and nervously handed him a small gift box. Inside was a tiny pair of baby shoes and a note that read, "Our little miracle is on the way." Ryan's face lit up as he read the note. He hugged me tightly, whispering, "Leela, this is the best news ever." For the first time in a long while, I felt like we were on the same page, united in our love and excitement for the future. Throughout my pregnancy, I poured all my energy into preparing for the baby. I decorated the nursery, read every parenting book I could find, and made plans for our growing family. Ryan seemed supportive, but as the months passed, I noticed he became more distant. He started coming home late, claiming work was demanding. I brushed off my concerns, thinking he was simply stressed about providing for us. The day Ava was born was the happiest moment of my life. Holding her tiny, delicate body in my arms, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and purpose. Her soft cries and perfect little features filled me with hope for our future. Ryan was there in the hospital room, but his reaction was far from what I expected. He gave a faint smile when the nurse placed Ava in his arms, but he quickly handed her back to me and muttered something about needing air. I convinced myself that he was simply overwhelmed by the enormity of the moment. When we brought Ava home, I was filled with optimism. I believed her presence would bring us closer together. I dreamed of us being a happy family, working together to give her the best life possible. But Ryan's behavior became even more detached. He spent long hours out of the house, often avoiding my questions about where he had been. I tried to focus on Ava, cherishing the precious moments of her first weeks, but the joy of her arrival was overshadowed by the growing tension between Ryan and me. It wasn't long before the tension between Ryan and me reached its breaking point. One evening, just a few weeks after Ava's birth, Ryan came home visibly agitated. His hands were clenched into fists, and he avoided looking at me as he paced the living room. Finally, he stopped and turned to face me. "I need $50,000, he said bluntly. I blinked in disbelief. "What? 50,000? For what, Ryan?" He hesitated, then sighed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I made some bets. They didn't work out. I owe a lot of money. And if I don't pay it back soon, things are going to get bad." I stared at him, stunned. "Gambling? You've been gambling? Ryan, we just had a baby. How could you be so reckless?" He ignored my question and pressed on. "We can fix this, Leela. Just sell your jewelry. It's worth enough to cover the debt." My heart sank. The jewelry he was referring to was a collection of pieces my mother had left me, each one holding deep sentimental value. "No, Ryan," I said firmly. "That jewelry is for Ava. It's part of her future, and I won't let you throw it away because of your mistakes." Ryan's face darkened at my refusal, his frustration boiling over. "You're being selfish, Leela," he hissed. "I'm trying to fix this for us, and you won't even help." I held Ava close to my chest, trying to keep my voice steady. "This isn't about us, Ryan. This is about you and your gambling. I won't let you drag Ava and me into your mess." That was when he snapped. Before I could react, his fist slammed into my neck, the force knocking the air out of my lungs. I staggered, clutching Ava tightly, terrified that she might get hurt. "You think you can just ignore me?" Ryan yelled, his voice echoing through the room. He grabbed a handful of my hair and yanked it so hard that tears sprang to my eyes. I bit my lip to keep from crying out, desperate to shield Ava from the violence. "You're ruining everything," he shouted, his grip tightening. Ava's cries filled the room, her tiny voice piercing through the chaos. Somehow, the sound brought me back to my senses. I pushed Ryan away with all the strength I could muster. "You've crossed the line, Ryan," I screamed, my voice trembling with anger and fear. "I'm done with you. You'll pay for this." I didn't waste another second. As Ryan stormed into another room, cursing under his breath, I quickly sprang into action. With Ava still in my arms, I headed to the bedroom and grabbed my suitcase from the closet. My hands trembled as I packed in a hurry, throwing in the essentials, clothes for me and Ava, her baby supplies, and a few important documents. Then I stopped, my eyes landing on the jewelry box sitting on the dresser. The same jewelry Ryan had demanded I sell. These pieces were more than gold and gems. They were memories of my mother and a legacy I intended to pass on to Ava. I wasn't about to leave them behind for Ryan to squander. I grabbed the box and stuffed it into the suitcase. With everything packed, I took one last look at the house I had once called home. It was no longer a place of love or safety. It was a prison, and I was finally breaking free. As I walked out the front door, Ava's cries began to soften, her tiny face resting against my shoulder. I whispered softly to her, "It's going to be okay, my love. I promise we'll be safe." I didn't look back. With my daughter in my arms and everything I could carry, I left, determined to rebuild a life free from Ryan's shadow and ensure he would face the consequences of his actions. I drove aimlessly for a while, my mind racing and my heart pounding. I knew I couldn't stay in the same city with Ryan, at least not immediately. I needed a safe place, somewhere he couldn't find us. After a few calls, I managed to find a small rented apartment in a quieter part of Denver. The apartment was modest, a single bedroom with a small kitchen and a cozy living space. But it was a refuge, a sanctuary where Ava and I could begin to heal. As I unpacked our things, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. This wasn't the life I had envisioned, but it was a chance to start over. That night, as I rocked Ava to sleep, I couldn't stop the tears that fell silently down my cheeks. The pain of Ryan's betrayal and the violence I had endured weighed heavily on me. But as I looked at Ava's peaceful face, I made a promise to myself. I would not let Ryan's actions define my future. I would protect my daughter at all costs. The next morning, I received an unexpected knock on the door. My heart skipped a beat, fearing it might be Ryan. But when I opened it, I saw Ryan's father, Mr. Collins, standing there with a troubled expression. "I'm so sorry, Leela," he said, stepping inside. I had no idea Ryan was capable of such things. I raised him better than this, or at least I thought I did. His words were genuine, and his regret was evident. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded, letting him speak. "I want to help," he continued. "I know this won't fix everything, but I've set aside $100,000 for Ava's future. Take it and use it to protect yourself and your daughter. You deserve better than this." I hesitated, unsure if I should accept his generosity. But then I thought about Ava and the legal battle I would need to fight to ensure Ryan faced justice. "Thank you," I finally said. "This means more than you know." Mr. Collins nodded, his eyes filled with sorrow. "You're strong, Layla. I know you'll get through this. Just promise me you'll make sure Ava has a better life than this." "I will," I said firmly. "I promise." With the money Mr. Collins provided, I knew it was time to take the next step, holding Ryan accountable for everything he had done. I contacted a highly recommended attorney, Ms. Taylor, who specialized in cases of domestic violence and financial fraud. When I explained my situation during our initial consultation, her expression hardened with determination. "Ryan's actions are inexcusable," she said, her voice firm. "We'll file charges for domestic violence, theft, and financial fraud. You have every right to seek justice, not just for yourself, but for Ava as well." Ms. Taylor guided me step by step, starting with gathering evidence. I provided her with medical reports documenting the bruises and injuries from Ryan's assault. I also handed over bank statements that clearly showed the money drained from our joint account. These financial records painted a damning picture of Ryan's reckless behavior. The hardest part was recounting the violence I had endured. Reliving those moments was painful, but I knew it was necessary. Ms. Taylor encouraged me every step of the way. "Your courage now will make a difference for Ava's future," she reminded me. With the evidence in place, we filed the charges, and the legal process began. The court issued a restraining order against Ryan, ensuring he couldn't come near Ava or me during the proceedings. Knowing he couldn't reach us brought me a sense of relief I hadn't felt in weeks. As the case moved forward, I focused on building a stable routine for Ava. My rented apartment became a place of hope and healing. Each day, I worked tirelessly to provide for her, determined to create a life free from the shadow of Ryan's betrayal. Months later, the day of the trial arrived. I stood in the courthouse with Ms. Taylor by my side, feeling a mixture of anxiety and determination. Ryan sat at the defendant's table, his once confident demeanor replaced by a tense, nervous expression. He'd avoided my gaze, but I could feel his presence looming. The charges against Ryan were severe: domestic violence, financial fraud, and theft. Ms. Taylor presented our case with precision and clarity. She laid out the evidence, the medical reports documenting my injuries, the bank statements showing the money Ryan had stolen, and records of his reckless financial behavior. The courtroom was silent as the weight of his actions became undeniable. When it was my turn to testify, I took a deep breath and walked to the stand. I recounted the night Ryan assaulted me, holding nothing back. I described the fear I felt, clutching Ava in my arms while Ryan lashed out in anger. My voice trembled as I spoke, but I refused to let the pain silence me. "Ryan didn't just hurt me physically," I said, my voice growing steadier. "He shattered my trust, stole from our family, and endangered the future of our daughter, Ava. I'm here today to ensure he faces the consequences of his actions." Ryan's defense tried to downplay his behavior, blaming stress and financial difficulties. But Ms. Taylor countered every argument with undeniable evidence, painting a clear picture of his reckless and abusive actions. After days of testimony and deliberation, the judge delivered the verdict. Ryan was found guilty on all charges. The sentence was decisive: 5 years in prison for domestic violence and financial fraud. He was also ordered to pay a $50,000 fine for the emotional and physical harm he caused and to reimburse every cent he had stolen from our joint account. As the judge read out the sentence, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Justice had finally been served. Ryan sat motionless, his head hung low, as the reality of his actions caught up with him. When he was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, I allowed myself to take a deep breath, knowing he no longer had the power to harm me or Ava. Walking out of the courthouse that day, I felt an overwhelming sense of closure. The legal battle had been long and exhausting, but it was worth every moment to ensure that Ryan was held accountable for his actions. Back in my rented apartment, I began piecing my life back together. It wasn't easy at first. The weight of everything Ryan had done still lingered in my mind, but I focused on Ava, her laughter, her tiny milestones, and her innocent smile reminded me every day why I needed to keep going. The money Mr. Collins had given me provided a crucial starting point. I used a portion to secure child care for Ava and invested the rest into launching a small marketing consultancy, a dream I had always carried but never pursued. From the comfort of my apartment, I worked tirelessly to find clients, build campaigns, and establish a name for myself. Slowly but surely, the consultancy began to grow, and with it, my confidence returned. Our apartment became a haven, a small but cozy space filled with warmth and love. I decorated it with pieces that reflected our journey: bright colors, soft furnishings, and framed photos of Ava's happiest moments. Each detail reminded me of the progress we'd made. Ava became the light of my life. Watching her take her first steps across the living room floor and hearing her joyful giggles as we played in the park filled me with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I poured my love and energy into creating a stable and happy environment for her, determined to give her the life she deserved. Mr. Collins continued to visit, his support unwavering. He brought small gifts for Ava: storybooks, toys, and once, a tiny chair that became her favorite spot in the apartment. His kindness reminded me that even in the worst circumstances, there were still people who cared. As the months turned into a year, I looked back at how far we had come. The pain and betrayal no longer controlled my life. Instead, they became stepping stones toward a stronger, more independent version of myself. Ava and I had built a life filled with hope, love, and possibilities. One evening, as I sat by the window watching Ava sleep, I realized I wasn't the same woman who had left Ryan's house with tears in her eyes. I had reclaimed my strength, my happiness, and my future. No matter what challenges lay ahead, I knew Ava and I could face them together. Thank you for taking the time to join Lila's journey of strength, resilience, and rebuilding after betrayal. Her story reminds us all that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope and a way forward. If this story inspired you or moved you in any way, please let us know by hitting the like button. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share your opinions and reflections in the comments below. Your feedback means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage, transformation, and empowerment. Make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Your support helps us continue to bring meaningful and powerful stories to life. Thank you for being part of this journey. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and we'll see you in the next story.